We gaan beginnen.
All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many people coming back again to the value stream sessions in this new year. So, of course, first of all, we just started this new year, and some people have some opinions, I guess, on till when you are allowed to wish someone a happy new year. I guess it's always a good time to wish somebody a happy new year. So from both Chris and my side, I wish you all a very happy new year. All the best for 2021. Really happy that so many of you came back to the value stream sessions this year. And welcome to this first edition. And in this first edition, we'll be talking about product goals and maybe a bit about New Year's resolutions. And since it's January the 13th already, let me start with this quick question and share via the chat. Is there anyone who has already violated their New Year's resolutions? Yes, someone has. Jogging. Didn't have any, of course. Yeah. Didn't make them. All right. Yeah. So some folks tend to use them. Of course, one of these typical goals is losing weight right at the beginning of the year. So I started doing that as well. Been doing so for a year though. So I think I'm pretty good on the New Year's resolutions from 2020 and trying to continue that in 2021. Anyway, hey, we're gonna talk in this episode about product goals mostly. And here's the topics that I would like you to run you through. We'll take a quick look at what are some different types of goals, what are characteristics of goals, how we can use value for creating goals, and of course, we have some tips on actual practical stuff that you can do today. Unfortunately, Chris is not here for this first episode. He's actually teaching a PSPO class right now and is just kicking off there. But of course, he'll be back in our next episode next week. So let's take a quick look at some different goals. And of course, the most common one, especially if you talk about goals for New Year's resolutions, is personal goals. And I think the number one personal goal is still losing weight, but maybe some personal goals around personal development. Maybe you want to do a training. Maybe you want to stick around every week with the value stream, kind of continuously trying to keep learning. So there's all kinds of goals that you may want to have as a person. Of course, there's product goals. What do we want to achieve with our product? Where do we want to take it to? Maybe what are some revenue targets, customer satisfaction targets, other benefits, outcomes that you want to achieve. And of course, process goals, some processes that we want to achieve, or basically the way of getting towards our product goal. Maybe we want to optimize our way of working, or maybe we want to improve the way we do sprint reviews or retrospectives. So more focused on the process. However, since this talk or these sessions are mostly, of course, about product ownership, let's focus on product goals. It's actually a quite new concept in the Scrum Guide. Probably a lot of you have read that last year when the new Scrum Guide was launched. A new concept of product goal was introduced. However, it's not something totally new to us, right? As product owners, product managers, we've been using goals for our products for decades. We've been setting goals to achieve around revenues, around improving customer satisfaction, around optimizing or efficiency. So setting goals is definitely not something new to us. Here's just a quick description of how it's stated in the Scrum Guide. So it basically describes a future state of the product, which helps the Scrum team to serve as a target and to plan against. So basically that big product goal can be split up into smaller goals again, and that could eventually end up as being a sprint goal in a sprint. And so the product goal should also be helping you to do sprint planning sessions more effectively with your team and to create those smaller goals per sprint. Why should you do it? Well, one of the things that we of course find is it really helps you to create focus for your Scrum team. It helps you to create focus for your stakeholders, makes it easier to engage with your stakeholders. If we concentrate more on a goal to achieve rather than features to build or outputs to deliver, that tends to be really helpful in stakeholder management in our experience. And again, that's experience probably from before the Scrum Guide launched this. It helps you to chase a shared objective, and it really helps you to focus more on value or outcomes and benefits rather than those outputs. And some people that should probably be involved in creating these product goals is, of course, you all, product people, product managers, product owners, product executives, of course, key stakeholders across the business maybe, the Scrum teams, and probably also any stakeholder that really pushes you to deliver more outputs. And so it could really help them to also start thinking more in value and what we want to achieve rather than just those outputs and deliverables. So what are some good characteristics of product goals? Well, of course, the ancient, it should be smart, specific, measurable, actionable or attainable, relevant and time-bound. That's still, of course, a big part of setting clear goals. And in a second, we'll also take a look at a simple template that you can use to set your product goals. In order to deal effectively with goals, of course, frequent inspection and adaptation is really important. So make sure to revisit your product goal every sprint review, for example. Make sure to revisit the product goal in every sprint planning. Make sure that it's on top of the product backlog, and that you continuously, when ordering the product backlog, keep that product goal in mind because it's at the top. And it helps you to kind of refocus, are the items on top of the product backlog? Are they actually contributing to the goal that I want to achieve? And probably it's also really helpful if it's focused on value, outcomes, or changes in behavior. And you can also set out goals, product goals, like deliver all the features before the end of the year, or deliver the entire scope before a certain deadline. Those are goals as well, however, maybe not too helpful. So try to focus the goal around value, outcomes, or changes in behavior. And these are some examples of value. So when we talk about value, we tend to talk about value for the organization, value for customers, and value for society. Thanks for the tip, Martijn. So 3 different buckets basically of value. Within those different buckets, there's all kinds of ways of expressing value. So if you look at organizations, of course, the number one way of expressing value in most for-profits organizations is, of course, profits, revenues, cost reductions, basically anything monetary. If you look at non-for-profits, their value additions tend to be more focused around the benefits to society. So that could be anything like reducing CO2 emissions. It could be something like increasing public health. It could be increasing prosperity in a certain country or around the globe. And so those tend to be more focused on how do we make society better. And of course, there's all kinds of value elements for our customers. And that can be basically anything from small things like saving people time or saving people some money. It could be things like improving quality of life. It could be easiness of using. So there's a lot of different ways of expressing value. And that value could be something that you can also set a goal towards. And that's something that I would like you to also do. So take a moment to look at maybe these value elements. Maybe you have some other value that you want to achieve with your product. And take a moment to share that via the chat. So what's the goal, the product goal that you want to achieve? And maybe let's start with the product goal for the next quarter or for this quarter. Try to make it small. What is it that you want to achieve? All right. Quite a lot of different goals coming in. Quite a couple of folks mentioning something around improving usability or the easiness of use for the product, customer satisfaction. And Ronald mentions it's missing in the slide. Basically, the customer is the person with the crown on his head, of course. The customer is king. So satisfaction would be something I would link there. And in this case, it's phrased as happiness, but could also be customer satisfaction or NPS, of course. Charging suppliers effectively for slippage of goods. All right. Ease of use, time savings, quality, website views, save time, retire a legacy system. That's a big one, I guess. UX. All right. Quite a nice bunch of different goals. Fulfill AVG rules. All right. Hey, cool. So if we take a look at something that may help you to phrase your goal in a bit more of a smart format, is something like this simple format. So it could be basically something to improve your product goal with after this session. So for example, you could state my or our goal is to achieve a specific result, which we can measure by a certain metric or measure. I or we will accomplish this by a certain date, which we know is realistic because the effort is worthwhile because, and we will achieve it before a quarter or a certain deadline. And this simple format could be something that you could use to make your product goal a bit more measurable or smart in general. So if we take a quick look at what are our New Year's resolutions and then share an example of what that goal could eventually look like, is these are three of the goals that Chris and I want to achieve with our products. And of course, that's the ancient one of removing a couple of pounds from the product backlog. Because like most of you in practice, there are so many ideas, so many products we want to build, so many new features we want to add to our products, things we want to change, improve, etc., that we also need to make some decisions. And I think this is one of the important goals that we need to achieve, at least in the first quarter, and really create focus on what is most important to us. So reducing a couple of pounds. Another important goal that we want to achieve in 2021 is to learn to speak more of the language of our customers, and that's mostly the buying customers. And of course, we do a lot of work like these sessions, writing a lot of blogs, doing a lot of trainings with folks like yourselves, with product owners, product managers. However, those tend to be not the people who buy, let's say, our Xebia's or Xebia Academy's products and services. Of course, you buy a training, but a lot of our buying customers are actually people who buy in-company trainings and have a couple of people join those trainings from their company. What would therefore be really helpful is if we learn to speak more of the language of our customers, which are typically heads of product, chief product officers, VPs of product, those kind of customers. And what we really want to do in 2021 is to focus much more of our content. So write more blogs, publish more videos, create more content in general for that target audience and try to show that we can help them as well. And the last one, or the third goal that we have in mind, is to increase engagement with the community. That's, of course, where you all do come in, and making sure that you all stay connected, that you keep getting new content, new information. And that's why we also decided to extend the value stream into 2021. But also this last goal relates to the product leaders in the community again, and making sure that we increase engagement with them as well. Now, these couple of goals are pretty similar to stuff that you shared via the chat. Yeah, they're pretty short. They are easy to memorize because of that, easy to recognize. But sometimes it's helpful to make them more specific, measurable, etc. So this is what our last goal, the one about increasing engagement with the community, could look like if we would add it into that format. And so basically our goal is to increase engagement with the product leadership community, which will be measured by the number of interactions, talks, and engagements that we have with product leaders. And product leaders to us means those heads of product, those VPs of product, product directors. We will try to accomplish this by establishing a pattern of bi-weekly interactions with product leaders, which we know is realistic because there's a large underserved market and plenty of support needs in handling product leadership related challenges. And the effort is worthwhile because increased talks, interactions, and engagements with those product leaders will lead for us to new business opportunities. And we want to achieve that before the end of Q2. So I hope you can notice that this really gives a lot of direction for what Chris and I want to do with our products in this first part of the year. And it makes it really easy to measure, really easy to track if we're actually achieving this goal. And so there's a bit of value in here for the company, which is the revenues for Xebia. It displays behavior that we need to display in the sense of engaging with those product leaders, at least on a bi-weekly pace. And it shows why we're actually trying to do this. So hopefully working with a format like this could help you out as a product owner or product manager as well. So there's a couple of things that I think you can already start doing today, which is try to maybe first do a brainstorm and then try to rephrase them into that format. But try to create 4 product goals for your product. And first try to align them for each quarter. So instead of making a whole bunch of goals, just do 4 of them and say, this is what I want to achieve in Q1, this is for Q2, for Q3, and for Q4. That will later on probably help you to rearrange your product backlog according to those goals as well, or to realign your roadmap towards achieving those goals. It also aligns a little bit with a practice that we see in other ways of working, like, for example, budgeting, which is rolling wave forecasting. And with rolling wave forecasting, we continuously inspect and adapt. We set out goals or budget goals for 4 to 6 quarters, and we update them every quarter as we get closer to those goals. And that could be a practice that you use for setting your product goals as well. Maybe the interesting thing, though, is if you take a look at the Scrum Guide, it specifically states, well, you're only allowed to have 1 product goal at a time. Well, all right. So that means that we need to put 1 product goal at the top of our product backlog and focus on that for the moment. But nobody says you're not allowed to have multiple goals or objectives in your product backlog. And so try to already include those other quarters in there as well to give you some direction on what you want to do this year. Of course, do it together with your Scrum team because it will really help to align them as well. It is really valuable to get their inputs there. Make sure to discuss it in the sprint review, for example, and get your stakeholder feedback or customer feedback as well. Another thing you could do is to make sure that you put your goals out there as information radiators. And actually, this post-it is an example, or this picture is an example of how Chris did this some time ago when he wanted to achieve his new judo or jiu-jitsu certificate. And basically, he put up this empty frame on his wall already, showing that this would be the place where his new certificate would be put up. And by visualizing them, by making those information radiators, you could also use it as a way to actually inspire other people, to inspire your team, inspire your stakeholders. This may be a bit more difficult since we're still mostly all working from home. So what we do is, you can't see it, but here just right in front of me, there's a whole bunch of post-it notes on the wall displaying some goals, some things that I want to do, some priorities, some reminders. So basically you could say there's something like a small product wall right here in front of me displaying some of the stuff that I want to do. Of course, you can also do this in a virtual setup. For example, using Miro, Ural, or something else, and basically posting your product goals to be continuously reminded of them and to continuously remind your stakeholders and your team of them. And another thing that you could do today is find a so-called accountability buddy. And we've experienced this to be really helpful, especially if, for example, you have this idea, I want to start moving more and lose some weight in this year. Then it really helps if you want to, for example, start every Monday morning with a 5-kilometer run, to have this accountability buddy who will call you on Sunday evening, telling you, hey, are you still going out tomorrow morning? And just for the fact that they call you up and ask you that question, that really helps you to be reminded of that goal every time. Of course, this is also something that you can do for your product. So you can also find a different product owner in your company, or maybe a product owner outside your company, and schedule a weekly or bi-weekly call and just continuously talk about, hey, what's the progress that I'm making towards this product goal? It could be something like introducing a weekly start or a week start for that. And together with your team, or together with a couple of stakeholders, or together with a couple of other product owners in your company, to kind of kick off the week and briefly be reminded of, hey, what's the goal that we want to achieve here, so that it becomes more of a natural pattern. So those could be a couple of things that you could hopefully do. So I guess we still have some time for a couple of questions as well. But just to quickly show you before we are moving into questions and closing off, there's a whole bunch of new content, new topics, interesting stuff that we can talk about in future exercises, or sorry, future episodes. It's early this morning, I guess. So a couple of topics that we have in mind to talk about in future episodes. It's not necessarily that they are in this order or gonna be addressed in this order, but a requested topic is to talk about how the 2020 Scrum Guide changes affect product owners and product managers. Frequently requested topic is stakeholder management, talking about more about value frameworks, evidence-based management, scaling, of course, product management competencies. We did a session on product owner versus product manager at the start of the series last year. And I think some people wanted to do more of a deep dive into those differences. So there's a whole bunch of topics coming up. Of course, if you have any additional ideas, please feel free to share. Use the Xebia community, just send us a direct message, use LinkedIn, whatever you prefer, that's all fine. And one of the things that we'll also be doing is a monthly Ask Me Anything session. So this is the first episode of this year. I guess 2 more will follow. And then we'll do a Ask Me Anything session, which is also something that a lot of people requested. And that's really a time when we can dive into your questions. So in those sessions, there won't be a specific topic that we'll talk about, but basically anything that you want to ask. What we would also find really interesting is to see if we can work with some guest speakers. So if you would like to do a talk, if you have a topic to talk about, or if you want to present a dilemma or a case, whatever it is, also feel free to send us a message because it would be really cool if we could collaborate more on this and actually have a whole bunch of you as practitioners also share your experiences and ideas in the value stream. So that's what's basically coming up. And of course, we have some additional readings for you that you could go through, especially around product goals. So make sure to check them out. And then I would like to thank you all for joining this first episode of the new year. And really looking forward to seeing you in the next episodes. So thanks for joining, and see you next week.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode, move on to the next one. Or
join us or follow us on Medium and LinkedIn to get inspired with even more content.
Or come to our training.